what I'm going to do. No more craziness, because I think we've actually seen a less crazy SK, and that, funny enough, is their detriment in this series.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I wonder now whether they'll open this up, give him something like the Na, which, yes, it has teamfight presence, but also in Mini Na has that devastating 1v1 if you give him the Rift Herald as well. We're into picks and bans. It is series point, and therefore tournament point.
True.
For Forge. They are 1 win away from a spot in the Challenger Series Summer Split. Already off the table are 280 carries. Make that 3.
Wow, okay. We've often seen a lot of mid bans throughout CSQ and in 610 in general. Now seeing 3 ADC bans is very interesting. Nidalee, once again, coming in from Forge. We've already spoken about one. Azir also aimed at Suno, but also in general, and one take them off the table. Ryze as well is going to be taken away. So what does this leave open? Because that's put a big pinch onto the ADC pool. I
mean, I would say Kindred been banned in previous games, both of this series, but also we have seen these junglers, you know, fall away from Kindred. We saw 1 game for Taiki on Kindred, whereas on the other side, Cesar is yet to play it. So I wonder whether it'll fall all the way through the bans. So Azir is off as well. We didn't really talk about that. The Draven one, I feel like is just admitting defeat for SK. They're like, well, we're not going to win the 2v2, so let's not give you the 2 that you've won with and see what else you've got. No real solid this is first pick other than like Kindred right now. If Forge want to go that way, and they don't.
No, it's just like, what do you want in terms of junglers? I think, yeah, it's funny because coming into CSQ, we just saw this massive rise on Elise, and I kind of see it now. Like Elise can stand toe-to-toe with Graves, with Kindred, and it becomes more preference for the junglers, and Taiki, his preference is definitely on Elise.
And Elise has always been a somewhat prioritized jungle when she's strong enough in Challenger. Just because warding is a little bit more lax, pick potential is a lot higher because teams are less clean on you know how they're setting up and
she punishes
defending.
Real hard,
she punishes super hard. So if you can find those opportunities, like an Elise sneaking back down into the bottom lane to set up, you know, a gank on a Caitlyn when a Morgana walks away, like that kind of thing, you punish super hard with. So not too surprising.
They're just straight up dead. SK, they prioritize the Victor again and the Sivir. Okay, so I like the Sivir, honestly. I like a team composition where SK just go back to their roots, which is, let's go for a team fight. Let's just go in, have Sivir, just pop the ultimate and just run at them and just have a good team fight. And like SK have good team fighting mechanics. In this series, they just haven't been able to get to them, or if they do, they're too far behind from laning phase.
And like these are 2 picks that have worked hand in hand the entirety of the qualifiers long. So like this is a very strong 1-2 punch. Good wave clear, good engage, good almighty, that is a Jhin.
Wow, okay, so Gap is just like, all right, you can take away 2 of my ADCs and I'll just pull out Jhin as well. I mean,
okay.
A little bit longer since we've seen Jhin.
So, okay, in this scenario, Jin's early laning phase is pretty decent. That 4th shot, if you just get that, it's just like, ooh, take a crit, have it. So I'm now interested to see whether that Trundle sticks bottom lane or goes up to the top lane. Jhin into Sivir, so obviously Jin's going to struggle a little bit pushing out if Sivir wants to use everything to push the wave back, but it depends on those early game trades. Should have a fair amount of damage to start, but it's the duo kind of punish on crowd control. You get like the pillar into the Jhin stun if you've got that mark on. Now you've got an Elise coming in for a cocoon as well. A lot of little different angles and things like that they can look to go aggressive with.
It's cool lane, it's cool setup. Just excited to see what they can do with it. Tarek locked in for unlimited Oni support to pick up in CSQ as far as I know. And he was often picking that with the Misfortune, but with that one being banned away, he'll go with the Sivir. There's the Kindred coming in for the jungle.
Okay, so first game for Cesar on that Kindred. Interested to see how it actually goes. Now, the hover over the Morgana I'm going to actually talk about for once because Jizuki has played a bunch of Morgana in this tournament, in the qualifiers, and has done very well. So when it comes to picking something into a Victor, he's just going to go, okay, well, I'll just wave clear. We've actually seen him kind of solo kill as well in that matchup. So an interesting one. I'm excited to see Jizuki's Morgana again, but I want to see what Suno can do here. Like, they need a big performance out of him this game.
Yeah. They really, really do. The Poppy goes into the top lane there for Mimic and has had some really good performances. Really been impressed by Mimic. Solid performances. Fiora? And that's locked in. Okay, so that changes things.
We were talking about how Ruin hasn't had the opportunity to put his carry pants on too well. He's going to need them in this game.
Yep.
And certainly has the potential. So we've previously seen a lot of Poppy, Fiora, and we know obviously Fiora with that split push potential is going to be able to kind of duel the Poppy for a long time when she starts scaling into it. Give her the Rift Herald, very difficult to deal with as well. So there is the opportunity for Ruin to take over this game from that top lane with the split push, and then you take into account you've got a Taric, you've got a Sivir, easy ways to either engage or avoid fights with the four-man pack there. Forge running heavy pick on the other side, though. You got an Elise, you got a Jhin, you got a Morgana, take one person out.
And from super long range as well. And like, it's almost impossible to miss a binding from Morgana after the like snared, 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 stunned, snared.
Then we see a whole bunch of Frost Queens as well. So you just pop that, and then they get slowed, and then they get locked down by the Jhin, and then stun, snare, stun. Like,
what are you gonna do? Oh, all right. So we can see the 4 compositions here. Anything out of the ordinary in terms of masteries? Victor once again running Storm Raiders. Jhin, of course, the Deathfire Touch.
Of course, Wind Speakers on Taric. You get to hit 2 people worth of heals, so
That's
you
true.
get that. You don't get double the bonus.
No, it's not. It's not quite a Venn diagram.
But it is. It's nice because you get just 2 different pockets.
Correct.
So
he heals a lot of people, of course, the invulnerability as well. But we are into potentially the last game of this series as Team Forge are on match point up against SK Gaming, and this definitely feels like a bit of a Hail Mary from SK Gaming, but it has to be right here, going for a different play style, having Ruin on a split pusher this time around. But
and I like it. It seems to be somewhat confident and you know, maybe towards bot lane comfort picks as well when you look at it. Like, get the Taric.
Right.
You got the Sivir, which Vardag's, you know, in previous games has done very well on, not in this series so much, but
I think it plays around what I consider to be SK Gaming's star player as well. I think Ruin has been the guy making or breaking a lot of these plays, so just put the resources in him and just go for it and see what happens. I would like to see prioritization on the Rift Herald as well. It would be unfortunate if it's like an Infernal Dragon first spawn, because then it's just like, well, we kind of have to play around on the bottom side. But
it's Infernal! Oh, that's unfortunate. And again, so what Pulse is saying for maybe people that haven't caught a whole lot of 6-10 games, because of the priority that teams place on Infernal Dragon, obviously having a fair amount of weight the later the game goes when it comes to that additional AD and AP. Now jungle priority kind of has to switch to bot lane. At the same time, you may see SK go, okay, we'll just give you the Infernal, the first one, and we'll take control of Rift Herald and take the next 20 minutes of the game. So maybe around that 10 to 12 minute mark, we may see the play where SK just concede the Dragon and very obviously go for the Rift Herald, which actually could pay off. Because if you only give Forge 1 Infernal Dragon, it won't have any kind of damning effect the later it goes. It's a risk, though, because then you're relying on Ruin actually taking over the game.
Correct, but they've kind of already done that from Champion Select, so I think at this point you just go all in, honestly. Early levels, Poppy has a fairly decent matchup against Fiora. You can, of course, block the Q with your W. You have comparable damage in the early game until you start scaling up, and then Fiora just wrecks you. But until then, you're kind of good.
Bot lane, however, you can see Forge again getting the level 2. Difficult for Taric to do too much this early on. As you can see, he has to run up, take a couple of hits from Jhin, take a crit, and then be like, okay, well, I guess I'll just walk back away.
Yeah, I think I'm out for now. And let's see. So Jizuki heading on down here. And just warding up, so slight CS advantage, but again, Jizuki is one of those players who has picked up a bunch of Morgana in this tournament and has had very good performances in pretty much every single game we've seen him on it. So lands those bindings, and with this composition, as you mentioned before, is very much a pick composition, so they can get those long-range kills and try and shut down Ruin.
The unlucky... Ooh, Mimic top.
Yeah, I don't know why Mimic went in there.
Came from the Vital. I was going to say the unlucky RNG coming out for Cesar. If this had been a lane swap, he would have been happy because it was the bottom side Raptors. Ooh, looking for the lockdown. That actually had the Mark of the Kindred on it in the bottom side Raptors. Standard lanes means you can't really afford to go in aggressive level 2 and just be like, hey, I'm trying to get this stack. Taiki just takes it down himself.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate, but still trading in the bottom lane. Looks like slight health advantage to Gap and Hiva right now. So Jin does have a pretty good laning phase. Very abusive, long range. Difficult to deal with the high damage he has. And Cesar coming down, maybe trying to even up the tables here. Vardags is going to hit by the pillar. Hiva's trying to put some damage down as well, but Cesar's coming in. Here's the reaction teleport. It's going to be a 4 versus 2. And now Forge have to go in for damage control as Cesar comes in looking for this first blood. Charging up the Dazzle. That'll be first blood over to Vardags. An advantage in this lane. Cesar helping them on out.
Oh, I saw the TP coming out from Mimic when it came to... I was watching him in base and I was thinking they can even up the numbers, but Mimic had already started his TP top lane for that, so no real way of, you know, evening the numbers. SK pretty much already had themselves the setup in the bottom lane, and you know, it was somewhat unorthodox timing to be bottom lane for Cesar. Kind of had to take a weird route down through the river, but ultimately ends up being in the right place at the right time, and this is a much better start for SK. Getting that kill in the duo lane this early on is exactly what they need to get them through. So it's Hiva that's going aggressive that actually starts that. And that's what I mean by it being somewhat of an unorthodox timing, is being this far pushed up with wards, you would not really expect the jungler to be able to get in and have this much presence here, but it's just enough damage to chunk down Gap, allows him to take that kill.
See how much it hurts him getting into this game, because it's still equal farm. He's gone for the call first as well, so also not looking to win right away, but definitely starting off the game on the right foot for SK Gaming is where they want to be, because every other game has just been lost pretty much from minute 1.
Yeah, unfortunate as that may be for SK. Some things did go in their favor that time around, though. Good timing out on that bot lane. Not only was the jungle being down there a decent thing, Jizuki was trying to recall, couldn't TP down, and of course Mimic TPing to top lane. So that TP advantage will be in favor of Forge when you look at just the mid laners alone, but both top laners have now used their TP, so neither will be available.
Hiva's going to invade here, probably get that ward over the wall, just so you can see both the blue buff and the Gromp, so you can track Cesar through the jungle, and another one as well. So nice timing there just by Hiva. Small supporty things where you can keep track of Cesar, make sure he can't gank any side of the map.
And this just turned fairly frustrating on the bottom side for Gap, because he's now dealing with a BF Sword Sivir. And look at the positioning of Cesar. Only one thing is going to come from running straight down bottom lane, and that's another gank. A lane gank coming out here. SK are adamant that their bottom lane are going to win this 2 versus 2.
Well, let's see. This ward is still up, so 4G will have the early warning, and Cesar will instead go into his jungle. Got Mimic aggressing on Ruin in the top lane. It's going to come down to the timing on Riposte, and Taiki is going to just deal the damage anyway. Mimic has enough there. Tanks 2 tower shots. As clean as you like in the top lane gank.
Oh, and while SK are prioritizing bottom lane, we've got to keep in mind this game is going to be top side focused. Ruin has to get ahead in this matchup, otherwise the whole composition pretty much breaks down. You don't really want the Fiora team fighting with the rest of your fight. You want her to be able to control the solo lane. SK, however, on response to that, the fact they had Cesar bot lane are going to try and take this Infernal Drake. Obviously, Forge don't want to let this go over uncontested. Jin's going to try and get in on this. No ultimate available, so can't take that splash damage to try and take anything. So this will be going over, save for something miraculous.
Good timing, but it's going to be smited away, yeah. Basically, if there was no smite, that would have been stolen from Jizuki. But yeah, good smite from Cesar. SK... The irony that they're running a split push comp with Fiora, and their priority has been on bot side, getting a kill for Vardags and also going for the dragon. 8 minutes into this one, there is a mark on the top side of the map, but there is also Rift Herald, which I'm sure SK will want to go towards. It'll be very useful for Ruin.
But if there's a moment that Forge can get out onto the map and do it themselves, like the Poppy, then can handle the Fiora for so much longer in the game. You've got 20 minutes where every time you take a trade, 5% damage reduction, and in that, you know, solo lane scenario, you've also got the added damage that is going to trade from building up those stacks. So it makes it difficult for Ruin actually to take that if the Rift Herald does go over to Forge. But this is going to be a big fight over it when it actually comes to pass.
Taiki going to clear away this mark, so Cesar won't be able to pick it up, and instead goes for these Raptors. So not a whole lot happening right now. Both the teams just kind of trading back and forth in their lanes. Slight gold lead actually to 4G, which comes in from the CS advantage in bot lane, and pretty much that.
Yeah, of course there was the first blood. Gold went over to SK, so it actually holds SK a little closer. But when you look at it, the you know, you might look at it and be like, well, how come they're not ahead on CS when they had all of these ganks? And it's just because of the fact that Jin still has a decent laning phase. Yeah. Like, the Civ is not wanting to go all in. Speaking of all in, top lane.
Grand challenge has been issued, but Mimic gets away. One threat. Ruin is still chasing after, but gets all 4 vitals, so he gets the healing down. But Suzuki is closing in from the backside. Ultimate has been popped, and that's the wrong timing on Riposte. And that will be punished in from Taiki. Cesar's going to use the ultimate. Maybe this will be a little bit closer. They can find 1 kill, but it buys time for Suno to find another. Ruin should be falling here. The flash by Suzuki doesn't get the lead on Suno. Meanwhile, on the bottom lane, Unlimited is going to get hit up. And then here comes the invulnerability in from Unlimited, chasing down Gap. Hiva going to respond with some damage. Deadly Flourish doesn't connect onto Vardags.
Oh,
curtain call.
If he hits all 4, it may very well be the kill here. Not quite. Too early on. I was going to say, if Vardags didn't have his heal available, I just caught a glimpse of that as he started the curtain call, but it's enough to force SK back. A lot happened in that exchange, and I'm sure we'll end up going back and seeing some of what happened in the top lane, but that bottom lane, just a bit of a trade back and forth. You can see Exhaust came out onto Gap as he was backing away. There was no autos coming out from him, so not really too much exhausted through. So this was the beginning of the top lane. This is the all-in from Ruin and Cesar. So Cesar already has used his flash here and then gets blasted all the way out of the fight. The healing procs onto Ruin, which makes this a little bit more difficult for Mimic to actually take this fight. That riposte timing is so unfortunate from the fact that I guess he was expecting the Dark Binding, but of course Suzuki is going to allow the lock from
Soul Shackles.
The Soul Shackles to happen first, and then you have an easy second binding. But from here, Suno, I don't believe, gets another kill.
No.
Chase them back under the turret, but that was about it.
It's actually a really nice binding from Taiki, because he may have been able to get the follow-up there from Suno onto the retreating target that had the Chaos Storm on top of him, but binding stopped that. So 4G are still ahead in this game, actually a little bit further now, just about 800 gold ahead of SK. First items are starting to be picked up. Jizuki likes these more glass cannon-y builds, where you go for just a high damage, death cap, frustrating claim, that type of stuff, and then go Zhonya's afterwards. So you can just get these long-range pickoffs with Gap and Taiki, of course. And Mimic, again, may be under attack from Cesar.
But I like this because Cesar's now realizing where he has to be on the map. He came bottom lane to set his duo lane up in advance. Taiki's actually spotted Suno. This is going to give Mimic a little bit of warning on what's coming, but he goes right into Cesar.
He's going 1v3, knocks away one target. Now he's onto Ruin, but the grand challenge has been completed. Mimic should surely be dropping it. Taiki's going to fall as well. He goes up in the air, and Jizuki finds one with the Soul Shackles onto Ruin. Cesar following afterward, but easy binding comes out. Aftershock not going to finish him up, but the Q will siphon power for the kill.
I'm really confused at why Mimic went so aggressive, but bottom lane, Hiva, he's always aggressive.
Deadly Flourish, Hiva's still following after. Frozen Domain comes out, but Vardags is going to turn this one around. In comes the Cosmic Radiance, going to keep them both alive as they find that kill. Meanwhile, Gap is going to try and find something in return onto Vardags. Vision has been cut, finally with the 4th shot, but actually going to wander back in to that Deadly Flourish for the mana. And big advantage actually over to SK, winning out in these exchanges. Yeah,
really strange by Forge, though. When you look at, I mean, Taiki spots the mid laner moving to the top lane. That tells you that jungler is around as well. Otherwise, mid does not roam in that kind of way. Really weird that Mimic would then cut down into the bush, trying maybe to surprise. I don't believe he had vision of it. Bottom lane, we're still looking. Gap's in trouble.
Flash Radiance, Flash E, Flash dead.
That's a couple of flashes, but So this was the top lane fight. So Mimic, they've got the vision of Victor, so he's coming down to box him in. But Mimic doesn't predict that Caesar is there, doesn't really get a full channel on the ult either, and from here just runs into the damage from Ruin. So I'm surprised he didn't anticipate that. From here, Jizuki cannot really take the 2 versus 1 as Taiki was repelling, and ultimately Taiki would end up falling from it, just from that siphon power and follow-up with the Q. And then bottom lane again, it's Hiva going aggressive here. They think they've cut Vardags off because of this ward around here. They're like, oh, well, Vardags isn't quite there yet. They can't quite get the invulnerability out. You'd be wrong, because the beginning of the spell starts to channel. The heal came out from Taric, and from there, Gap is now on his own. Can't really close out the rest of that fight.
Okay, here's the priority.
But this is good for Forge. Forge have just taken the Rift Herald away. And yes, there's a dragon going over to SK. Now we really get the question of how much does Rift Herald impact this split push matchup? Because I have to feel like Mimic is going to be so much better off in this portion of the game now for a lot longer than you would expect in the Poppy Fiora matchup. It
basically opens up or continues the time where Poppy can go one-on-one with Ruin. Ruin's trying to get on Taiki, but Taiki actually goes back in with the Grand Challenge on top of him. Risky play, but actually pays off as he returns the damage with Neurotoxin. Mimic and Jizuki there to support him. But it's longer until Ruin can actually win that one-on-one straight up now.
What I will admit, though, is we haven't seen enough games with this exact scenario to know how long this effect will last. Will it just be maybe 2 minutes added onto what you would expect, which is a small window of time? Is it like 1 rotation worth of TP play? Like, these questions still are yet to be answered in a split push kind of matchup, and I'm now excited to see how this works. I'm not going to take it as gospel from this game, because it's a sample size of one. So, certainly, though, I feel like in theory, getting that Rift Herald over to Mimic is very beneficial.
Currently, Ruin is only really going even with Taiki, and that's the jungle there. Flash! Mimic takes him out for the kill.
I mean, that doesn't count on what we're talking about, but it's going to help the Poppy again.
It will.
Everything is going towards helping the Poppy. Your Fiora, at 15.5 minutes, has 4 deaths. That is not conducive to a good split-pushing Fiora.
It's not, but the team's ahead. So they've been putting their resources into the bottom side of the map, but it's like, how long would this last? Because it seems like a short-term fix, right? Where it's just like, yes, we're getting these dragons, yes, we're getting these fights and skirmishes, but our composition revolves around Ruin getting that split push. If the ADC, Vardag, and Suno just get unbelievably massive, that they can carry every team fight, maybe it can still pay off. The flash comes in from Hiva. Ruin's going to try and close in. Exhaust comes out. There's just not a lot of damage in from Ruin right now, but he's trying to get those vitals off. Looking for the second one. Gap's going to open fire, try and save his ally. He's only going to use 1 shot because he doesn't care that much. And Taiki, he is going to try and help out, but the Repulse will find the kill. Taiki going to be chased down the tower. Chaos Storm comes up, and there's a lot to come back down underneath it, so he'll have to flash away.
That is the most high-tech spider trap I've ever seen. It's like a gravity field with lasers. It's just like, this spider ain't coming back in here. I like that from SK, though. As you were just kind of setting up, they've got this advantage on the Civet, on the Victor as well, so utilize that. Yes, your solo lane is not going well. You're not getting the split push game to be effective, but the rest of the 4-man pack can still have the potency. And with the Sivir ahead, there is certainly still the room in this game for SK to kind of bounce from small number skirmishes like that and just get themselves a potential win, or at least a lead to build from.
It was all a bait. They just picked the Fiora and so like, just focus Ruin, don't worry about it, and then we'll win everywhere else. Still, it's an uphill struggle, especially if Vardags get caught out here. Taiki will clear away some of these wards. Double sweep is used down for maximum clearing potential. 5 and 7 in this game. For some reason, it was hard for me to read 7. And Taiki and Gap should be able to take this tower down relatively easily, evening up the tower totals.
More kills than we've seen in the last 2 games, really. First game had like 0 kills for SK for a very long time, and Forge basically picked up 3 and won the game at the end of it. Last game was fairly low kills as well, a lot more about map movements and pushing for objectives. A little bit more of a loose game. Maybe that benefits SK. We know that they've been playing heavily around team fights with the Misfortune, with the Taric. Maybe that's the kind of game plan that is going to benefit them. And in this scenario, I mean, you've got to feel... Okay, so this is going to sound bad because of what we were talking about with Ruin in the pregame. This kind of setup where you've got a Sivir with this number of kills plus a Victor with this number of kills with like a tank top laner is, you know, perfect like kind of setup. It's unfortunate for SK that this is the game where their bottom lane is doing well when they actually need their top lane to do very, very well.
So, if they picked a top lane tank, though, would we not have just seen a result of, like, the first game or second game?
I would say so. And that's not me saying they should have picked a tank. What I mean is that...
if they had it right now, it would be perfect.
Exactly, exactly. Maybe not with 4 deaths, but still would have been good. I'm not saying that they should have. I actually like the game plan they have for this game. Just... a lot of presence from Taiki has gone top lane.
Well, it changes how 4G have to approach the game, right? Because you saw the priority. They actually went towards the Herald instead of the Dragon, took that one away from the Fiora. They actually put focus towards the top lane, actually had interaction up there, where if you had a tank matchup, you wouldn't have seen anyone go top, and it would have just been tanks butting heads constantly. Yeah,
I was watching Mimic right there, conceded top lane presence. He had 1,000 gold in his inventory, so that is not a fight that you want to take. Regardless of the Rift Herald, you don't want to fight with the gold disadvantage too much. Cesar gets locked down. I don't really think we're going to see a full fight over a blue buff. Not really worth.
No, but they really want this blue buff. Taiki, he's going to back off. Big ultimate in from Victor, lands on 3. Heaver's going to dissipate before this fight really opens up, and now Mimic will come in, get a good knock into the wall from Cesar, and that will be the ultimate used on top of himself. Lambs just by keeping people alive, and Gap is going to open fire, finds one onto Unlimited. Ruin trying to disrupt this, jumps into 4 people, and walks over the wall. Deadly Flourish will try and finish him up, but Taiki is split from the team. Going to return the damage. Venomous Bite. Team's trying to assist over the wall, and Mimic will do a great heroic charge. But gets caught out by Jizuki. Perfect timing, perfect plays. 3 and 1. 4G get the advantage in that fight. Now find them an Infernal Dragon.
I mean, I was saying I don't think it's worth fighting that hard over a blue buff, but a blue buff plus the fight plus an Infernal Drake will do it. The Drake spawned mid-fight and goes over to Forge without their jungler. Cesar was desperately trying to run down. Any smite would have done at that point.
Any smite will do.
Oh, man, that is unfortunate binding at the end of it, man. That's got to feel bad for Vardags. Like, gets bound out. Because he's got the kill on Taiki. And,
well, it hurts more when it's a mid Morgana, because that binding hits even harder.
Especially Rabadon's. He's already completed at that point. Oh,
how much is that Q actually doing? 600 damage, That's hurts a lot harder.
Just a little
Twice
bit of
as much.
Yeah, just a touch. That fight, though, realistically, you don't see blue buff fights. And it could have been a decent fight for SK, because where Forge started the fight, they were very grouped. And that's where the Victor ult, plus the laser, all of these abilities want to lay on top of each other. The problem is, Forge managed to kite down the ramp. We're actually going to take another look at it again. So in these small choke points, the Victor is happy to fight. Same with the Sivir. You got a lot of AoE damage. You can hit multiple people. They catch on to Taiki at first. And again, still the focus is somewhat on the blue buff. Nice catch by Unlimited, hits 2. And from here, SK should realistically clean this up, but they come into open ground, and the Tormented Soil, plus a lot of the crowd control effects just in these small areas, actually allows Forge to turn around the damage in this fight. Curtain Call used to try and get that second kill so incredibly close on the health bar on Kindred. Of course, that forced him now into having to deal with the Fiora that comes towards him. And we're about to see the unfortunate binding come out as Vardag steps forward, trying to get Mimic, and oh, that's painful.
So the spell shield was actually at the right time from Vardags, but it got taken out by captive audience, the small trap. So,
wow. Oh, okay.
Where's that coming from? Got the curtain call, last one. It's going to throw out Alan to Unlimited.
I don't think I'm ever not going to be at least a little surprised by Jhin damage when you get somebody in the ultimate, as soon as you got a couple of items.
And it hurts even more, because if you get hit by just one of them, then you have like the Deathfire touch damage as well, so it's just like, I survived, but then you might just bleed out anyway, because he's building so much AD. That thing will tick down for a lot of damage. Try and clear out this minion wave. Binding doesn't quite hit the mark, but just pushing in on this mid wave. Mimic now coming in from the bottom side. What is that noise?
That's on Jhin, I believe. Oh. Isn't that the sound of Curtain Call?
I don't know, whatever it is, it's scary.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not too sure on that one. The Horn of Gondor!
That's really spooky.
Look to the east. Oh!
Oh,
Ruin,
he's coming in. This is not the best flank, though. He is still Fiora, and Caesar is low. He even popped Lamb's Respite, so threw that one down and got a bit of healing back. But yeah, Fiora, not the best flanking champion.
No, not the best team fighting champion either, really, when you... And also not the best, like, 1v everybody running through the jungle trying to stay alive. But
good,
she gets out.
Good pillar, but yeah, does manage to get out. Because Ruin, if he went in there, was 1v4. Then we landing all these shots, this time onto Vardags. Risu's a bit of damage there. Or continue with the siege. So, did manage to take down the middle lane turret, and looking for this inner tower. Yeah, flash out from Vardags.
And what forced that was basically the W from Jhin was spell shielded into then the Trundle pillar boxed him between the turret and the pillar, so it meant the binding was 100% hitting because it just hit him square, so he had to flash out.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a nice little balance of the crowd control and the bindings and all that.
All these bindings are so close to hitting. Looking for the dazzle.
Yeah.
Get out of here. You don't need any of your gems in this push. And Nemesis is going to walk back into the mid lane. Caesar is very low, so he'll go back to base. And looks like Forge are done with their push for now. So they're still in a pretty good position. They do have the leads. And this is after SK had the leads early game as well.
What we haven't seen, though, is Mimic out in that side lane now. And that leads me to believe that in Mimic's mind, his time of being in the advantage of this matchup is over. Normally, you would just see him just incessantly split push if he felt like he was able to take that 1 versus 1. So the fact that he's even now running mid lane does tell me, in his mind, he can't be in that side lane. Now has to at least just receive waves and TP into fights, or be in the fight already. So that is a little bit of a difficult situation for Forge. I like that. Jizuki knows the blue buff's going to aggro up towards him, places the pool off the blue buff, allows it to walk over.
Smart.
I mean, it's not even that smart. It's just like, I'm like, oh, I don't really see players do that too often. That scenario does not often happen.
You know, something I want to see more of, specifically because this is relevant to this game, is Poppy getting a heroic charge into a Trundle just spawning a pillar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
It's hard, but if you get the coordination down, it's a stun whenever you want. It's going to put a lot of damage onto Hiva. Actually, more than I was expecting.
Yeah, that was a whole lot of damage. Here comes the curtain call. Onto full health targets, so getting the slow is not the most amount of damage in the world.
It's making them a little bit squishier before they go for the next fight. But still hovering around mid lane. How are we doing in terms of items? Kindred actually going for the Phantom Dancer out of the jungle. Mimic is going for this 1v1. We will now find out who is stronger. No, we won't, because Jizuki's coming in as well for the 2 versus 1.
Oh, but mid lane, this is the problem.
Is coming in for the engage, and Limus is chasing after, but Taiki is almost certainly doomed. He'll flash away. Jizuki tries to save him. Cosmic Radiance comes down. Jizuki still being chased after. Big flash away. Hiva. And Suno is trying to find him. The ultimate's going to chase him down, however. Gap is getting slowed down by Caesar. Vardags and Ruin are trying to get in range to deal the damage, but he won't get there quite in time. But that's still a 2-0 to SK.
Yeah, SK finally finding a few more scrappy little fights, get themselves 2 kills. TP comes back mid lane from Jizuki to try and hold this. He's got the damage to deal with the minions, but can they deal with Ruin coming in from the backside here? Exhaust on Hiva, but Hiva's not there.
Oh, right onto Gap, and he's eliminated. Jizuki may also fall here, down to Ruin. There's the second kill. This one to Vardags. Mimic is also getting chased down, and Ruin, he can tank the tower a little bit, but with the Steadfast presence, stops him in his tracks. And Mimic finds a return kill. 1 for 2, advantage again to SK.
Yeah, SK, though, now have to deal with Hiva, who's closing in. That tower should fall. Hiva is only the support, though, so no real damage on his own. TP coming in from behind. This is Mimic into the fight. Says it is already low.
Well, he has Lamb's Respite, so that will keep him alive for a little bit, but there's no team around him, so he has to accept his fate.
Could this be a Baron attempt, though?
Perhaps.
I mean, it's slow, but at the same time, they do have some sense of damage.
Limited Vardags is there. There's pretty decent ward coverage around the area. There's ping still going down onto the Baron.
Yeah, Forge want this. I mean, it's not an easy take, but they know they've got Caesar not available here. Unlimited is half health. And Vardax has, you know, taken some damage already. Victor's around, so now you've got the difficult situation of getting, you know, lasered in the pit. TP's coming out from Ruin to even up somewhat the numbers, but Jizuki is already running into this fight. Sivir ultimate has been popped. Forge, they're stuck in the Baron pit for now.
SK, they're looking for a way to get into this fight. Taiki takes a big ultimate there from Suno. Curtain Call comes across the lockdown. Unlimited, last one will find the kill. Suno will come across, try and get the aftershock damage onto Helium. Long range support in from Gap. Ruin trying to get a range with Lunge. Doesn't quite pan out, but a 1 kill over to 4G. But SK do stop the Baron.
Yeah, they stopped the Baron, and that fight could maybe have gone a little bit better for Forge, but Taiki actually kited the, the Chaos Storm. Suno was pulling it back into fight. So we're going all the way back into mid lane though, and this was what initially would open up the push from SK. So they get the easy pick onto Taiki, just utilizing that Sivir ultimate plus the damage coming out from Victor and the rest of the team. It's an easy cleanup in this scenario. He was never going to be able to outrun this, and starts the passage of play that lasts about 1.5 minutes total, as SK would continue to push with Ruin. Overstay, Ruin ends up falling. And it looks like we're going to take a look at the whole sequence here, because this was a long set. Ruin goes in, does end up falling, doesn't even matter about the health field right now. Allows him to just get those first 2 kills before Mimic eventually is able to turn this around. Does not die. Steadfast Presence is going to knock Ruin back while he has tower aggro and... or at least stop him in his tracks, trying to go in. It looks like a knockback sometimes, but they just like jump and jar on the spot. Yeah, exactly.
They also take damage as well, which people forget about, and then it's just like, oh, because he was fine. Like he was just like, oh, it's fine, because even if we get interrupted, it's only a bit of tower damage, and then I'll just back off. But combined with the knockup and the extra damage it gives you, yeah, that results in some kills. So we're now back into this scenario where both teams are just kind of chilling around mid lane, trying to put down some wards, get some vision in this one. And 4-0-3. Suno's actually having a pretty decent game. All the carries are on SK apart from Ruin, but he's now starting to get those items and become relevant, as you can see in these fights. Unlimited just taking a bit of damage there from the Deadly Flourish.
A lot better than the previous 2 games as well for SK. Speaking of Jin, just about to hit that Infinity Edge point. Has the gold for it roughly. About 60 away, so a couple of minions is all he needs to be able to get that, and that is just going to increase his potency. That 4th hit, man. Now the crit, the added crit damage is going to hurt.
Yeah, he's got a lot of AD. 400 right now. And how is Cesar actually doing on stacks? Because he's hurting a lot more than I feel like he would be. So only 5 stacks, but that's still 6%. So that's still a bunch. Of course, he has the Blood Razor as well on top of that, so a lot of damage coming out here. 13-11, much more of a bloody game in this one compared to the last 2 that we had. It was all really around those objectives. 3 dragons over to SK, and I can tell you that 2 of those were mountains, 1 of those were infernal.
Nearly got the lockdown, but SK avoided it. SK still hanging on in this series. This is, however, series point. Forge with 2 wins, 2 very convincing wins, but I mean, it's good for SK that this hasn't been the same kind of game. Here comes the curtain call.
Gonna land the second one to Cesar, trying to get him a bit lower. 3rd one whiffs, 4th one doesn't connect. It was a warning shot.
There's a moment here, Ruin's going bottom lane with no TP. He's about to show. The rest of Forge could look to start something here. They know they have the numbers advantage because Poppy is with the team. The problem is they can't capitalize on this quite fast enough. They don't have a burst of movement speed to get them into the fight. Yeah. And SK are also playing defensive at the same time. Cesar steps forward, but
that was risky.
Doesn't have the Jin mark on him, so there was no lockdown.
Still, hopping into the mid lane and using your mobility spell, a little risky, but it's just like, I'll just, they'll never expect me to walk into mid lane and utilize my defensive spell, so Forge will never capitalize.
Playing with fire.
Yeah, Ruin, he's doing a lot of damage now, but it's kind of hard for him to deal it, because he's not all that tanky. But there's a lot of just posturing around mid lane right now. This is the best chance that SK have had all series to pick up a win, and boy do they need it.
Mimic has gone top lane, TP available. Still in the last 1/8 of the glimpse of the void. So that means another 3 minutes roughly, just under that, available on the buff. Of course, it is a 20-minute duration. So you can do the maths at home. It's not quite 3 minutes.
Yeah. Well, Taiki, he's walking on up. Suno is the only one defending this tower for now. Caesar bound.
Oh, Caesar forced the ult.
He needs something. He's going to have to pop his own ultimate. Jizuki's going to walk away. So they got the Lamb's Respite there. And this should be the top turret, resulting in that. I don't think they can get the wave clear down in time. Even with a Victor and Sivir, they just simply didn't have the positioning.
But bot lane, can Fiora take this fight? I don't think so against Mimic. Mimic is actually level 16. Fiora doesn't have level 3 ult at this point, so Mimic's able to push him back. That's not the reason that Mimic can take the fight still, but it's just another thing that doesn't go in favor of Ruin right now. Still, that Glimpse of the Void was active on Mimic. Mimic has been further ahead when you look at the itemization. 3 items completed. Fiora not even at that third point. And there's still a Warden's Mail on top for Mimic, so certainly can still take that 1v1.
He's unfortunately just too tanky.
Yeah.
Like, he's 2.5 armor items and just has so much health and Glimpse of the Void that even if Ruin gets like a beneficial trade and maybe gets like half of his health for a quarter of his, Mimic will just back away.
Yeah.
Like, he won't be able to pick up the kill, and under tower, then Mimic will certainly be able to find a 1v1. So it's problematic for SK because their resources were funneled into Suno and Vardags early, and that's going to bite them later on into the game, which we did question. But if they were able to consistently win those team fights, which they have, to be fair, over the last couple, have managed to get some beneficial trades, then maybe they can come back into it. But really, that Baron was a big issue. Or the Baron to be taken. And now 4G pushing down the bottom lane. Deadly Flourish comes across and continuing the siege up.
Clears the wave. Allows them to push up to the turret.
Times it out there. Unlimited's going to come in for the engage here along with Caesar. Mimic is charging up the ultimate.
Jizuki's not here, so Forge have to be a little careful. They still need a few more seconds before Jizuki can actually join the fight if it kicks off. And that's why they back away and reposition in this bottom lane.
Taiki.
They've got the Sivir ultimate though.
A lot of damage in from Suno. He may find a kill. He's going to have to flash away, that being from Gap. And Ruin's coming in here, forces another flash in from He, but this is a good trade in from SK. And Ruin's going to come in. The ultimate comes out, the Lamb's Respite from Caesar will keep everyone alive for now. 2 kills for SK, looking for their third onto Gap. There it is. And Heave is also being chased down, but so is Mimic. And Ruin will find him along with the rest of his team. Shut down out for Fiora. 4-0. SK, big win.
Forge were not ready for that fight. They hadn't grouped properly, and their disengage just did not land. Jizuki bound a minion. They were forced to use Flash very early on Gap. And Taiki, and man, that couldn't have gone a whole lot worse for Forge at that point. Good fight for SK is going to transition into a Baron buff for them. And is this the build that SK needed to get back in this series? It looked incredibly dire after game 2. But SK, with this composition, they managed to get their bottom lane ahead. They managed to get ahead from mid lane. And now they've got themselves Baron. I mean, I feel like SK are in a real good spot.
This is now a winning position. They are not ahead in gold, but they are ahead in momentum. Let's see the setup to that last fight, because as you said, they weren't in position. You can see 4G right here, a split. Suno will punish Taiki and Gap, and then likewise on the opposite side, Ruin will try and punish Eva.
Gap had to flash outside of the Victor ult, or at least he felt like he had to flash. The problem there is now he has to try and stay close enough to deal damage, but is kind of limited from the the reload. When everybody was grouped, he couldn't get the damage down. And then the Taric ult procs, suddenly you can't deal damage with them anyway. Yep. So you're just throwing autos at nothing. And that means, again, you've got to try and kite back. You get to reload again. And if you even manage to get that reload, you're probably already dead by the time you fire the first shot. So unfortunate for Gap, but good by SK. Managing to punish when Forge were over-aggressive.
Maybe a counter punish here. Third shot landing onto Caesar. Fourth onto Unlimited. I do really like the positioning from SK in that last fight as well, because they were all clustered around that bottleneck you could see on that ramp. They all got in range for Caesar's ultimate, so no one died, while 4G were running away, so they didn't benefit from the ultimate, and Unlimited landed pretty much a multi-man Cosmic Radiance, so they all benefited at maximum value from all of their AoE defensive spells. So
Now, 3-item Ruin with Baron buff. Surely that's enough.
We'll see. I mean, one of those items was a Sterix gauge, so there's a defensive item, but I'm just wondering if he has enough damage to cut through Mimic, because he's on...
With the Vitals, I would have thought so.
Yeah, with the true damage, perhaps. We'll see. But it's a long task. It's not like an instant one, really.
It's not like you hit him and suddenly he loses 2k
it's like, oh, yeah. Because like Mimic's got his core right now. He's got the triple armor items. Sometimes you'll see a full mail thrown in there as well, but this works just as well for Mimic. And honestly, like, I don't think Ruin can beat him. Right now they're just farming off. Maybe with the Grand Challenge.
I mean, keep in mind, not only is he going to have the Vitals damage, he's also got a Black Cleaver, so every time he hits, he is going to be reducing that armor.
It's also true, yeah.
Up to 6.
In a prolonged trade.
I mean, as well, he's got a lot of armor, so you're shaving a little off the top and then dealing the vital damage.
Mid lane, see this again. Fourth curtain core. Well,
nope.
Not quite going to land. 1 out of 4. It's a decent ratio. And 4G are just going to continue clearing these waves.
They're just going to try and fight.
Yeah, I just want to see them
and then they're going to stop again.
Well, top tower is an easy take
push
for SK.
Yep.
I mean, pretty much anything outside of an inhibitor turret is going to crumble real fast from SK. 4G is just going to recall back to base and just hold the line.
SK have only got about 30 seconds left on their Baron buff at a maximum, so they kind of have to reconsider now. Push out, last wave, recall. Set yourself back up for the next objective. Still a while away. Elder Drake is going to be the next one. Still over 3 minutes left, I believe. That fight... In fact, I think it should just be under 3 minutes. That fight preceded the Dragon, so... as Baron buff expires, we should be on the 2-minute timer.
Soon TM, that's for certain.
Like concept of time. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey.
I can say for a fact
there we go,
2
minutes now. So I was close on the second one.
Yeah, there you go. Good. SK Gaming.
My watch is out by a minute.
Ah, okay, I see. Hiva and Gap are just around this area, establishing vision ahead of that dragon. Honestly, SK are in the position where, like, if they win one good team fight, they could push in real deep into that base. Because they have the waves pushing in top side and mid lane. I
mean, realistically, with the Sivir, with the Victor, they should be winning the team fights now. And then you got the Kindred, you got Sivir to push in, you got Fiora as well.
They push really fast.
Good tower pushing champions as well. Keep in mind, they don't have an inner to deal with in the top lane. And that's why Forge are having to recall here. Might have been caught sleeping, but out go SK. Transition over to mid lane. SK are going to play this out carefully, because if they lose this game somehow, that undoes everything SK has been working on now for the last week and a half, and everything before it that preceded. SK are in such a rough situation here. They've got to win the next team fight. One team fight could actually now put them out of Challenger if they were to lose it. They've got the Sivir, they've got the Victor. Should be good team fighting.
Oh, Q. And lots of damage, lots of poke is coming out for 4G. Trying to soften up SK Gaming. Limited goes back. 30 seconds ahead of Dragon. Usually you want to recall like 60 seconds to a minute.
He should be fine with home guards.
90 seconds, 60 seconds to a minute is the same thing. Ruin is into the top side jungle.
He should be fine with home guard to get there in time.
Yeah.
He needed wards was the problem. So, yeah, it's not ideal, but has to run back out at least to be able to spot them once the wards have cleared, because despite SK taking the last fight, they did then concede a lot of the Dragon control. It's on SK now to take the fight to Forge.
Can they do it? Curtain call comes up. Good poke onto Unlimited and Cesar. This is opening up very well for 4G. There's a pillar as well. This looks like a very good engage, and we'll also get the pin down onto Unlimited. Mimic is going to be wailed away on. Meanwhile, good ultimate onto Hiva and Jizuki forces double flash, but Unlimited got to follow both of them. There's a Lamp Bite, going to help 4G for a second. Ruin's onto the backline, he's onto Gap, and he is getting eliminated from this one. We'll also get the stun in return. Ruin gets the kill onto Gap, a second one onto Hiva, a third one onto his next victim, looking for a fourth onto Suzuki. Even Styles on him. Quadra kill to Ruin. 8, 6, and 6, and has come back in this game huge.
That is pretty much locking the victory for SK at this point. They can just push this through. SK managed to at least fire one victory now. They're at 2-1 in this series, or 1-2. SK, maybe they're starting the comeback.
Maybe they are. Mimic is the only one left alive, and SK with this fast push comp will be able to take down the Nexus, and they keep their hopes of EU Challenger alive.
And we finally got to see in this series what would happen if SK didn't fall behind in the mid lane, in the bot lane. And, you know, the presence was put in bot lane for SK early on in that game. Yep. They brought jungle down twice. Got enough from it that they were able to put their bot lane ahead. Mid lane got ahead as well from some of the presence around mid, and it didn't actually matter that, you know, their team composition had that split push aspect that fell behind because the bottom lane and the mid lane did the work in this game. Actually
surprising. It was all like, it was just an elaborate bait. Just focus down on the Fiora and we'll win mid and we'll win bot and we'll actually use that opportunity. And it really all opens up from, the first kill in the bottom lane for sure. And maybe we have to question the Jhin a little bit, because yes, it was good. It did a bit of damage in team fights, but it wasn't exceptional out from Gap, and that is pretty much what won a lot of those games for Forge, was him having a good performance in Lucian, the Draven. The Jhin didn't really work out there, and it was a Hail Mary from SK going for a split push composition, and additionally with the 2 bans against the ADC, but that's where it had to go, and it worked out. So that's one win on the board from them, but they need to pull something else out.
Yeah, I'm now excited to see what the next step of this is. Can SK run the same thing again? They're on blue side. We'll see how the picks and bans priority swaps around. Yep. I like the Sivir Victor. I think that's really strong for SK, and if they can get that again, they could be in now with a chance of evening this series up, which after the first 2 games, I wouldn't have thought would be something I'd be saying after game 3. Just from how dominating games 1 and 2 were. But here we are, SK. They take a game. Maybe they're on the way back.
Maybe they are. And that is game 3 in the books. So we are going to take a short break. So we'll be back in 3.5.
Can they deal with Ruin coming in from the backside here? Exhaust on Hiba, but Hiba's not there.
Oh, right onto Gap, and he's eliminated. Jizuki may also fall here, down to Ruin. There's the second kill. This one to Vardax. Mimic is also getting chased down, and Ruin, he can tank the tower a little bit, but with the Steadfast present, stops him in his tracks. L4G for a second. Ruin's onto the back line. He's onto Gap, and he is getting eliminated from this one. Will also get the stun in return. Ruin gets the kill onto Gap. A second one onto Hiba. A third one onto his next victim. Looking for a fourth onto Suzuki. Even Styles on him. Quadra kill to Ruin.